Be sure to subscribe and click on the bell for notifications on future uploads. Hello, Bard here, or you can call me Zoe. And today, I'll be looking at more animated movies of 2016. And this time, I'll be taking a look at the first, and quite possibly only theatrical movie to be based off an existing property. And since the sequel last year was pretty decent, I wanted to go back to the first film and see if it's any good after 4 years. But the first movie isn't anything good. Yeah, it has a few decent moments, but they don't really help that much. And from the former writer of The Simpsons, Jon Vitti, the movie is known as the Angry Birds movie. The movie is based on the popular mobile game from Rovio Entertainment and created by Jaco Asalo. And the game proved to be popular enough to spawn a sequel game, a spin-off, a TV series, and a radio and Star Wars version. On a place called Bird Island, one bird named Red has been mocked and ignored due to his big eyebrows and anger issues. And despite Red claiming not to have any anger issues, he's put on trial for ruining a young bird's birthday, and to have that same boy's family to have their baby imprint himself on Red, and is sentenced to anger management class. Yet Red has problems coping with anger management, as the instructor Matilda wants to help, and even when two birds, Chuck and Bomb, wants to be friends with him. But one day, a ship arrives to Bird Island, and aboard are two pigs, Leonard and Ross. Leonard says they came from Piggy Island and have come to be guests to Bird Island, and the birds welcome them, though Red is suspicious of the pigs, even after they destroyed his house via anchor. So while the birds celebrate the pigs' arrival, Red, Chuck, and Bomb sneak onto their ship to discover loads of stuff on board, and a deck full of more pigs. And when Red confronts Leonard about this, Leonard states the pigs are nothing but simple-minded folks, and the birds fell for his sympathy. Yet as the pigs and birds are becoming friends, Red still feels something's up with the pigs, and so he, along with Chuck and Bomb, go up the mountain to seek the wisdom of Mighty Eagle, as he protected the island and is the only bird who can fly, eventually to soon find out what the pigs are really doing. While I have played the game myself and the real version, but only for a few levels, I could say that this film felt more like a sellout than a movie, as the jokes and scenarios aren't too funny, and where I see some potential, it hardly pays off. And when I say sellout, I mean that some of the stuff from the game are in the movie, but they're just in because the game has them and they're made pretty obvious in the movie. The slingshot the birds use to launch is a gift from the pigs, the structures the pigs sit upon are like the buildings of Piggy Island, and the birds themselves and their abilities are similar to the game, including the 3 birds at the end of the film. Okay, so the birds do have the same names and abilities, but that doesn't mean they have the same personalities. I mean, what else is the same between the birds in the game and the birds in the movie? Though in some ways these bits do serve some purpose to the movie, as all of the moments in the game come together in the climax, but the logic between them doesn't feel right. Like, why would the homes of Piggy Island be made similar to the structures of the game, though rather weaker? Or why would the birds use some strategy to get to the castle? All these points and others felt like forcing and using the game's ideas rather than making something original or different. Bird Island and the inhabitants are the only thing unique, as they didn't utilize anything from the game, but the climax and setups with relating to the game felt really forced and hammered. Yet with the jokes and ideas of this movie, they're pretty much miss, though I do see what the makers are trying to do even if they didn't work. For the jokes, a lot of them don't get a laugh from me, even the running gags and bird and pig puns. And the running gags are mainly of a bird wanting to get a hug as he's a hug trader, and a mime occasionally saying, "Oh my gosh." But the mime is a worse running gag because mimes don't talk. If the joke were to work, he'd be saying more things than just one line, or something along that. But this just doesn't work. The bird wanting a hug did get an occasional laugh, as I can kind of see it work, with him mostly being missed. Yet most of the time it isn't funny, even when Red makes unusual remarks about him. There's also the bird and pig puns, which really don't bother me, but they are pretty frequent, mostly with the pig puns. Pluck my life, Insta-ham, ham radio, angry flocking birds, etc. Certain jokes and moments were either made too obvious or not taken full advantage of. Like the pigs only came to the island to steal the eggs just to eat them, and not letting the anchor crush Red's house completely. There's this one bird named Stella who is often seen making this gesture of swinging her arm every time she talks. I don't get why she does this, and she even does it when her dialogue doesn't call for it. But that's not the only character I have an issue with, for there are others I have a bit of a problem with. One is with Red, the main lead. The film says he has anger issues as all the birds are supposed to be happy, but the problem is Red rarely gets angry. He's mostly seen as being grumpy, bitter, sarcastic, or on occasion depressed, none of which appear to be funny or make me want to like him. And even when he does get angry, it doesn't last long, and there's only like 2 instances when it happens. If Red is supposed to be angry, then go all out. And despite the times when stuff starts to get on his nerves, he doesn't react appropriately. Yes, I get that he's the main lead and making him angry throughout would make people hate him, but if Disney with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and Pixar with Inside Out can portray emotionally driven characters better, why couldn't this? Another character I have a problem with is the judge, in that he should also be the mayor, because he's seen almost everywhere in the movie. He tries to justify the happiness of Bird Island, all by constantly ignoring Red's statements, never asking questions to the pigs, and blames Red for every little thing when he has done nothing harmful, and sides with the pigs when they aren't feeling bothered by anything, including Red. Mostly because Red's seen as the angry one when he rarely gets angry, and only Chuck and Bomb believe him as they were with him, from sneaking onto the pig's ship to visiting Mighty Eagle, and somehow they don't share any blame for it except Red. Speaking of Mighty Eagle, the one huge joke he's involved in was particularly unfunny, and it became kind of gross. It's when Red, Chuck, and Bomb go to visit Mighty Eagle for advice and wisdom, and they come across what's known as the Lake of Wisdom. Chuck and Bomb decide to swim in it while Red tells them to get out of there and not to drink from it. Then Mighty Eagle appears from the mountain cave looking like he's beginning to fly. The birds hide behind a rock watching him, then Mighty Eagle starts to urinate in the lake. And even before he does this, everything leading up to it is too obvious and kind of gave it away, with Red somehow knowing about it but still surprised when seeing it happen. Not to mention that Red actually made the pun, the Lake of Wiz. And, in a bizarre coincidence, this is one of the 3 animated films of 2016 that did this type of joke. Norman the North had the lemmings do it in a fish tank and potted plant, but it's only heard. Moana had Maui do it in the ocean, tricking Moana into thinking she's getting warm water while sailing, yet nothing is heard or seen. But in this film, Mighty Eagle is both seen and heard doing this, which is something that no other family film would stoop to. But outside of all this negativity I have with the film, there is a small but fair amount of decency I can see. Other than the characters' motives and personalities, I do like their designs, which in turn clash well with their voices. Though am I the only one who thinks Leonard's voice is like Jonathan Winters with a southern accent? Because that's what I get out of it. The production design of it is nice looking, even if some of it felt like a blatant tie-in. There's an occasional joke I like, such as the aforementioned bird wanting a hug, and Terrence, this big red bird who says no words and only grunts and growls, as he has a backstory that's only implied through police sirens, lights, and a woman's scream, and it's never mentioned what he did except that it's an incident. And that did give me a bit of a chuckle. And the actors voicing the characters are okay, but they barely left a mark. Jason Sudeikis voices Red, Josh Gad voices Chuck, Danny McBride voices Bomb, Bill Hader voices King Leonard Mudbeard, Peter Dinklage voices Mighty Eagle, Maya Rudolph voices Matilda Poppy, Kate McKinnon voices Stella and Eva, Sean Penn voices Terrence, Tony Hale voices Ross, Mime, and Cyrus, Keegan-Michael Key voices Judge Peckinpah, Hannibal Buress voices Edward, Ike Barinholtz voices Tiny, Titus Burgess voices Photog, Julian Bell voices Helen and yoga instructor, Billy Eichner voices Chef Pig and Philip, Ian Heckox voices Bubbles, Anthony Padilla voices Hal, and Danielle Brooks voices Monica and Olive. As a whole, this movie has some potential, but it doesn't shine through and it isn't all funny. The characters, while fine in design, are kind of weak, the story has substance, but doesn't make much attempts and waste time, and the animation is okay, but nothing too special. Directors Clay Kaytis and Fergal Rayleigh have made a film that has some elements of the mobile game, a few decent moments, and an occasional chuckle or laugh, but the majority of it wasn't funny, the character motives, personalities, and situations aren't handled well enough, lots of bird and pig puns, at times cliché, and overall is kind of sloppy in its execution. I can see what it was trying to do and where it was going, but the comedy is pretty underwhelming and the characters and story are sort of lost and tend to happen out of nowhere. And it feels like a sellout when setting up things from the game and in the climax, even if they do serve some purpose. Yet the film still felt like a bunch of nothing with only a small handful of decent bits that don't add much. And while the sequel is better, the original film is nothing much other than meh. So today, this movie began a rating of 2.5 minus stars. So thank you for joining me. Like, comment, subscribe, follow on Facebook or Twitter, support me on Patreon, and until next time for a new video.